name is Meredith Walters, and I am the Director of Arts and Culture Programming for Brooklyn Public Library. And it's always a pleasure to welcome the Orchestra of St. Luke's. We've been partnering with them for many years, and they bring programming to BPL for free, which is a good budget relief, so thank you very much for that, so that we can bring you programs for free. You can find out about more of our programming by visiting us online at btllibrary.org and go to the cultural programming tab and see everything that we have lined up for you in this spring, which is around the corner, I hope. My terrific colleagues, the librarians here, put together a special reading list for this concert. So when we're open on Monday, you can go into our new and noteworthy section, and you'll see a book display there of books about ecology and earth and music. So please check out the book display, and thank you, librarians. As I said, introduce Andrew Roystein. Yeah, give him some snaps. As I said, introduce Andrew Roystein. He is the Director of Education and Community Engagement for OSL, and he'll talk about tonight's program.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for coming today, and welcome to the Orchestra of St. Luke's concert, Earthworks Music for Our Planet. As Meredith said, I'm Andrew Roystein. I'm so happy to be here today. We are in our final concert of our 5-borough tour at Orchestra of St. Luke's, and we're very, very happy to be able to bring it all in here at Brooklyn Public Library. Today, you're going to be experiencing the perspectives of 6 living composers, and we hope that you'll be inspired by the stories that they tell through their music. We are just so thankful again to be here at our community partner, Brooklyn Public Library, and I also want to acknowledge a couple of other community partners that make this concert really special, which is We Act for Environmental Justice and the Climate Museum. I also want to thank our generous supporters who made these concerts happen. You can also see Orchestra of St. Luke's. If you really like it today, you can come. We're playing. Our tour is over, but you can also see us again next week on the 16th at the Kauffman Center in Manhattan, and then on the 17th at Carnegie Hall, and that's an all-Schubert program. Today's program is very different, and it is inspired by the last person I'm going to thank, which is an organization called the Gabriella Lena Frank Creative Academy of Music, and they are really a big inspiration for this program. Without further ado, let's hear some music. Here's a piece called Lishna by Christine Elfine Henry.
Hello everyone, my name is Allie Sappho, and I'm happy to be the host for tonight's concert. Today we're listening to music written by composers that is inspired by the planet, its origins, and their concern for its future. I'm not one of the featured composers, but just like them, I'm here for the planet. I'm an environmental educator, and I spent most of my time these days urging fellow New Yorkers to eat weeds. Yep, eat weeds. I'm a forager, and I harvest wild plants, and I educate others on how to collect their own for food, medicinal remedies, and crafting. People are shocked to hear that I do this work in the most concrete city in the country. I actually grew up and I reside in Staten Island, and you may know this as the borough that was once home to the largest garbage dump in the world, but it's also home to the city's most protected green space, which is filled with wild edible mushrooms, rare sacred plants, and hundreds of miles of trails to find peace, health, and solace in. Growing up in this paradoxical place has given me a perspective, much like a dandelion growing through the cracks in the sidewalk. We are a part of nature, we always were, and we always will be. And we should connect with our origins despite how far we may seem from them. I had the opportunity to speak with each of today's composers, and I learned about their incredibly unique stories. You just listened to Christine Delphine Hedden's piece called Lishna. Lishna is an Irish word that describes the glow in the sky just before dawn. And anyone who's woken up or stayed up all night to watch the sunrise might be familiar with that sense of anticipation. That feeling of angst that settles in between mourning what's behind us and excitement for what's to come. What we hope for tonight is that you can embrace what we learned from the glow in the sky before dawn, transitions into day. We hope that this concert can be a transition point for all of us, to learn about people's stories and to allow their influence to inspire us. The next work we'll listen to is called Bang by Michael Tomas Fomai. This piece will send you to the edge of the galaxy, then back to the shores of an archipelago. While listening to Bang, you might get the sense that you're floating amongst the chaos at the beginning of the universe in the Big Bang. Perhaps you can tap into your deepest origins, when you were merely stardust floating aimlessly in space, neither waiting nor expecting to become part of the small, mysterious world that we now call home. The composer, Michael, resides in Hawaii, where the carrying capacity and limits of the land are more obvious than in other places, because there's only so much land on each small island. Hawaii's natural spaces today are being developed at a rate greater than ever before. This means less space on an already finite set of islands for biological diversity, birds, and marine animals that call it home. Michael's upbringing on a small archipelago in the vast ocean waters reminds him of what life could have been like before modern waves. Long before GPS or satellites, Pacific Islanders navigated voyages across the sea using stars, the sun, and other signs of nature. Just like they navigated long journeys using the stars, maybe we can carve a path forward by tracing our deepest origins. Here's Bang by Michael Tomas Fomai. in the present day, the Hindu story was written about Krishna, one of the most widely revered Indian deities. In Whose Mouth with Stars by Akshaya Tucker tells the story of Krishna as a mischievous child. The story goes like this. Krishna's mother caught him with a mouthful of sand. Concerned for his health, she scolded him and pried his mouth open. But inside, she didn't see sand. She saw every element on earth, every star in every galaxy, her village, and herself. We often forget that we come from the same place, and that we have more in common than not. Once we were just elements swirling within molten lava as this planet was forming. Now we have similar emotions and shared experiences. We may sometimes feel divided, but imagine what we look like from the edge of our solar system, a tiny speck in the sky, a community of people indefinitely attached. The next two pieces you'll hear are by Gabriella Lena Frank. Gabriella is the founder of Composing Earth, which is a uniquely robust commissioning program for composers who recognize that climate change is a civilizational emergency. Composers go through a 2-year process of studying the science of environmental and social issues that intersect with climate, and then they find their own story within it. Often when grappling with difficult truths or problems that feel bigger than ourselves, we can feel defeated. It can feel that there's no feasible role for us to play. But it's necessary that we learn not to confuse the gravity of these issues with hopelessness. Gabriella's motive for this group is we have to think about how much we've lost and remember how much there is to save. Gabriella is a California native, and she called herself a casual purveyor of the environment until she moved to a town that experienced wildfires. It can be hard for us to imagine the impact of a wildfire, but what she described is flames moving at 80 football fields per minute, red skies filled with smoke, entire towns of 30,000 people completely burnt off the map in a blink of an eye. It was through this experience that she realized she could no longer be a casual purveyor of the environment, because the problem was big and it was right in front of her eyes. Gabriella's music in the past has been deeply influenced by Latin culture, social justice, and gender equity. And more recently, she focuses on telling stories of people affected by climate change because she sees how we are all interconnected through this issue. The second work you'll hear in Gabriella's set is called Zapatos de Chincha. It was inspired by a festival that's known for Afro-Peruvian music in a city called Chincha. The musical tradition that Gabriella is exploring here was first developed by enslaved West Africans living in Peru. Gabriella told me that although many of the dances in Afro-Peruvian traditions are playful and light, the population often suffers the worst effects of environmental racism, with many living in under-resourced regions of Peru. The festival that this piece was written about celebrates the rich cultural identities of this Peruvian coastal town. And as you listen to this piece, you might envision a dancer, light on their feet, elegantly and playfully moving like a tap dance. The first piece you'll hear in Gabriella's set is called Canto de la Hoja, or Leaf Song. This piece portrays sights and sounds from a trip that she took to Peru, but focuses on that of a dying leaf. Except this leaf is not dying because it's been through its seasonal cycle. This leaf is dying because the tree is dying, and in fact, on this trip, she noticed that many were. Much of Peru is known for its 20,000-foot mountain ranges separating arid desert, rainforest, and coastal environments. And because these ecosystems are so expansive, we don't consider fragility and the effect that something like climate change can have on them one tree at a time. In just a minute, our violinist, Alex, will tell you a little bit about how Gabriella creates a sonic embodiment of these leaves in this song.
Thank you, Ali. I'm Alex, and I'm really excited to play Canto de la Hoja. Gabby describes this leaf musically by using this repeating cycle of 5 notes over and over again. And so we'll hear something like over and over for the piece. But one technique that she uses with those 5 notes is instead of playing solid tones on the violin, she uses a string technique called harmonics, which is where you just hear an upper partial of the string, so instead of hearing clear. And that creates a sound that's a little bit more fragile than the standard tone of the violin. And for her, this represents the fragility of the leaf that we are singing here. So now back to Ali.
Thank you so much, Alex. When you all listen to Canto de la Hoja, consider the vulnerability of this form of life. Think about the tree that needs this leaf in order to photosynthesize, the bugs that need this leaf for sustenance, and you might hear the delicate leaf blowing in the wind. talk about climate change or environmental issues, it sounds so new, trendy, posh, or flimsy even. But the truth is that scientists have been talking about carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, climate change, and sea level rise for over a century. Solar panels were invented nearly 70 years ago, and Persian poets were writing about the displacement of wild animals nearly 1,500 years ago. The next piece you'll hear is called Ahuye Kuhi by composer Iman Habibi. It's inspired by an 8th century poem about the displacement of wild animals, specifically a mountain gazelle. The poem asks, how is the mountain gazelle expected to survive without its home and companions? Is the gazelle no longer wild and free if it's taken away from all that it knows? Displacement is something that all species have in common. When rainforests are cleared, then the native birds nesting in the trees don't get a warning. Neither do refugees left homeless from a hurricane. The Pacific Island-based country of Kiribati has stated that they understand that each of its 119,000 citizens may become climate refugees in our lifetime, as the 6 foot above sea level is expected to be unlivable in the future with sea level rise. Maybe all of these instances seem like one-offs or necessary evils that are out of our control, and there is some truth to that. We will see loss, and it's inevitable. But where will we run when there is nowhere else to go? It's often through this extreme loss or disaster that we realize something is wrong and we need to change. Can we see ourselves as the mountain gazelle, in absolute need of our land, our companions, and a healthy and balanced ecosystem? What if we couldn't run away from here to a different place? Would we live any differently? compels us to feel the gravity of the issues that we face, and it reminds us just how long we've been discussing them. But the last piece of this concert reminds us that while it's important to sit with the seriousness of life, we can remain hopeful that ingenuity, joy, and wonder can carry us into brighter days. Recite It by Nicholas Leo Benavides was inspired by a massive 15 by 15 foot tapestry on display at a museum. The tapestry was designed to look like a kente cloth, which is a West African textile with vibrant colors and striking geometric shapes. What's special about this tapestry is that it wasn't made from traditional materials. If you looked closely and examined, you could see that it was designed with old foil from recycled liquor bottles. Technically, this piece was made from garbage, but the foil gave it glimmer, color, and a new life that shocked everyone who saw it up close. I've learned that creators, specifically composers, can feel pressure to create something completely new. But what if we already have everything we need and we're just neglecting its value? For Recyclit, the composer Nicholas pieced together all the old ideas in his head and wove them together, much like this tapestry. He stitched together past influences and unfinished projects to make a playful and glittery piece of music. And he was only able to do this by releasing the pressure on himself and simply create music from a place of curiosity and joy. It takes humbling oneself to do something like deny the urge to shop with the trends, just like it takes humbling for a composer to admit that their music can be borrowed from bits of other composers and teachers. But there's nothing wrong with this. In fact, reusing things only shows their value. So maybe this is a message for us to assess what we call garbage. Is it the foil on old liquor bottles? Is it old ideas that we've long abandoned? Is it weeds that we're ripping out of our garden without asking ourselves if they're as valuable as the flowers that we're planting? We can discover a whole new world full of joy if we just question the notion of garbage. I hope you enjoyed this final piece as much as I did when I first heard it. I could hear the playfulness in the music before I even spoke with the composer. So when we finally did speak, it was no surprise that he believes in the approach of learning, changing, and creating from a place of joy. I want to thank you all for coming to today's concert. Whether you were brought here to listen to classical music, attend a free community event, or you were here for the planet, I hope you took away what I took away from this series. That you don't have to be a climate scientist to feel that you have a stake in our future. So many ideas have been discussed through tonight's music. Development and displacement, disrupting ecosystems from climate change, and creating new life from things regarded as garbage. With all of these ideas in the air, people often wonder, well, what do I do? I'm reluctant to prescribe any single solution, because there is no single solution. There are many pathways forward. And luckily, there are a wealth of environment and climate-focused groups locally that can steer us. For example, We Act for Environmental Justice is a partner of the Orchestra of St. Luke's Earthworks Tour, and they're with us today. Their mission is to build healthy communities by ensuring that people of color and low-income residents participate meaningfully in the creation of sound and fair environmental health and protection policies. We encourage you to connect with them after this, and they're here with us today, so they'll be saying a word at the end of the concert. We'd also like to thank our other environmental partner, the Climate Museum, for supporting this series as well. And as Meredith mentioned, the Brooklyn Public Library has put together a book list for those interested in learning more about this topic. There are so many great books, from climate to energy and food security, A book that changed my life personally is called The Third Plate by Dan Barber, and a book that changed the world is called Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. No matter which way you look at it, we're all connected to matters of the planet. We all have a story that ties into our role here. One that hopefully makes us interested in preserving its future. These composers do, I do, and I'm sure you do too. It's when we trace our stories, we can find out what role we play on the path forward. A little bit about me. Today I run a business called Glam Gardener NYC, and one of my favorite things to do is teach. I teach both kids and adults to fall in love with the woods, just like I did when I was a little girl. I teach people to identify edible and medicinal wild plants, which is called foraging. These plants are often plants that we regard as weeds, useful, or useless, or even harmful. I love the feeling of seeing people's worldviews transform as they learn. And foraging teaches me that often the solutions can be right in front of our eyes. It teaches me that our health is directly connected to the health of our ecosystems, and it also connects me to where we all came from. Before we end, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention something very important to me, which is not giving in to the overwhelming fear of problems, so much so that we become paralyzed or complacent. One of my favorite climate activists, named Vandana Shiva, warns us of succumbing to climate doom. When we give in to climate doom, we give up on our planet. And when we give up on our planet, we give up on ourselves. And we can't give up on ourselves. So may we all find our role on this journey towards a collectively better world, and may you learn to create from a place of curiosity and joy. Remember that big things often have small beginnings. Thank you so much. Before we end, I'd love to invite Sonal from We Act for Environmental Justice up to speak, but lastly, please give our musicians one last round.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you to the Orchestra St. Luke's and everyone who comes. And it's been a great pleasure on a Sunday afternoon, so thank you all, and thank you to the Brooklyn Public Library for hosting us. My name is Sonal Dessel. I'm the Director of Policy at We Act for Environmental Justice. Like Allie said, we are a community-based organization in West Harlem, and we organize communities to fight for environmental justice, which is the idea that people, no matter their income, gender, race, class, deserve to live in a healthy environment. And we work on a lot of issues, including around making people's homes healthy, getting toxic chemicals out of our food and our water, ensuring that our transit isn't run on diesel, which causes a lot of air pollution, making sure we have clean air and clean water. We work on a large host of things, but especially these days we've been focusing a lot on the climate crisis. These past several years have been a big focus of that for us. And we see that there's a lot of intersection between environmental issues that have existed for a very long time, like air quality, that we've been working on since we started in 1988, to issues that are becoming more and more pressing now, like the climate crisis. One good example of that is the conversation around the use of peaker plants in New York City. For those of you who don't know, peaker plants are fossil fuel-based plants that give us the energy in our homes, particularly on days when we need extra energy in New York City, like when there's a heat wave and we all have our ACs on. They're not supposed to run all the time, but they do, and they're all cited in Black and brown communities in New York City, particularly South Bronx, Astoria, Queens, for some examples, and they spew a lot of really dirty, toxic pollution that hurts the air in those communities and hurts people's health. It leads to respiratory illness, cardiovascular disease, and a whole host of things. So we see this intersection now of combating the climate crisis means getting off of fossil fuels and not using these dirty peaker plants, but also means improving air quality for people that have lived in neighborhoods with poor air quality for a really long time. So that's just one example of things that we work on. We have a whole host of things.
Thank you so much for coming and have a great night.
I need to